online.
So we order, and I
yeah, they didn't have everything. I have. It's cheaper than.
Okay, good.
Did you like Georgia?
Yeah, we were in Athens, so it's actually we should order in Arbor of Georgia. And you know, it's cool. It's a cool town. It's got a lot of music history.
Yeah, this chewy thing that you like. Why?
Chewy. Of Montreal.
Is this all we're expecting?
So good music.
Yes.
Good food. Good.
Okay.
Good people.
I guess.
But
Is our first applicant? Is our only applicant, I guess?
Yep.
Okay. I'll call to order the August 17th, 2016 Ferndale Planning Commission meeting. Do we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Cesar, Baker,
Here.
Brazen,
Here.
Barr, Kelly,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Williamson,
Here.
Chair Rodiger.
Here. Do we have a motion to excuse Commissioners Azar and Farr as we are aware of their absence?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next up we have approval of the agenda. This evening we have 1 item under new business and 5 items for discussion and 3 administrative items. Any proposed changes from anybody?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next up is our approval of our last meeting from July 20th. Any modifications to the minutes? The only question I had, and she's not here, but under the Woodward Avenue special land use, it says Krista Azar recused herself for conflict of interest.
Her spouse worked for her sister.
Somebody.
Worked for Suburban.
Didn't she,
but
did
then
she physically leave the room? I thought we decided it was not a conflict.
Because she ended up giving comment about some of the landscape and things like that, so
Right, so she didn't recluse, so she mentioned
she could.
she disclosed,
Yeah.
and we determined it was not a conflict of interest, so she was not recused. So this implies that she was recused, and that didn't happen.
From the vote, did she?
No.
Can we change to disclose then, rather than...
Right, disclosed a potential conflict of interest. It was determined that it was not a conflict of interest, and, Krista Azar remained for the item, because this implies that she wasn't. Anything else?
I would move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain. No one here.
And abstention. Next up we have public hearings. We have no public hearings this evening, but we do have, next up is new business for 1741 Livernois. It's multiple family development. Ken, Justin, if you would give us an introduction and then have the applicant come to the mic.
Sure. As the chair stated, we have a site plan application for 1741 Livernois, the formerly city-owned American Legion Hall. The applicants have been before this board and city council a few times as the property was rezoned from R1 single family to R3 single multiple family residential. The plans are still for a 2-story 4-unit multiple family residential building with some on-site surface parking and attached garages. In your packet, there were a couple of different reviews. One, the initial review was done by LSL Planning. I included both reports and the applicant's response, but there was discussion surrounding exterior building materials, some of the tree species in the parking lot, dimensions of the overall site plan, and just clarification on the easement agreement that exists between the Historical Society. And there was actually an error in the initial report that mentioned that the proposed setbacks would need a variance, and further looking into that was not the case. So there's no variance that's needed to approve this site plan. Since the initial review, the applicant provided a letter explaining that information, and then in the interest of time, the applicant did provide printed copies of the new site plan. Obviously, you haven't had a chance to look at those. This is the updated plan that you have here printed, and the applicant has a presentation that he can give you. But essentially, the site meets parking requirements. There's proposed plans for a bike rack, parallel parking on site. The site's adjacent to a recently rezoned R3 property to the west. And as far as the specific requirements related to multiple family dwellings, it meets those criteria for as far as access and circulation, community areas, landscaping. So the rooftop mechanicals that were discussed in the letter have been updated as well in the new site plan, and more feedback on privacy fences, screening walls, things of that nature. Those items out in your packet and in the staff report are also listed in the conditions. If the Planning Commission were to move forward, those could remain conditions, as I'll need a final full set of the site plans in the end, which the applicant knows. But I'm happy to answer any questions with the review.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant could come to the podium. While I come up, just to clarify, so the plans you passed out this evening are not the plans that were in our packet, but they are the
Correct.
plans responding to the comments of the staff review.
Correct, and I included the conditions that would need to be met as part of the final site plan in the staff report. Those can remain conditions, but those changes do appear to be met in this new version that you just received.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Jeff, Creeker Clad Architects. This is Mike McCool, the property. And we appreciate your time this evening. We also thank you for all the help and guidance you gave us back in April when we presented as a discussion topic. So we were able to incorporate a lot of those design ideas into our project as well, too. So thank you for that. So as Justin mentioned, these are the revised plans in front of you, and that's really a reaction to the LSL comments for the review. So we can answer any questions you may have about those drawings, detail with them as well. But generally speaking, the concept is the same. The design is relatively the same, except for some adjustments based on those comments that you provided us, as well as LSL. So we're still looking at, as Justin mentioned, 2 buildings, 4 units per building for a total of 8, 2 stories high with an attached garage at the back. Some of the comments some of the changes to the original design, as well as the comments from LSL, had to deal with green space. I think in our first plan that we submitted to you, the building was, especially the northern and southern sides of the building, were long and monotonous, a real long linear line. And we were at paving right up against the building, so we didn't have any green space there. So we were able to tighten the buildings up. We pinched them together a bit more and had some green space in there. So like a 3-foot buffer. We had some evergreen shrubs in that area to help really, again, buffer the space and make it more pleasing on that side. You also notice on the elevations that we did provide some relief on those 2 facades. We stepped the building in the middle, so it broke it up. We changed some of the materials from brick and metal siding versus the long band of the block and the siding we had above. And that was also from one of the comments that LSL provided too. It was a burnished face CMU block. It was really a decorative block we thought was attractive, but there's something in the ordinance that states we can't have more than 10% of that material. So we did switch to a brick instead. And that's the material board that we have in front of you too. So there's a charcoal gray brick, there's the metal siding color, which is more of a zinc-like material, and then that's the cedar siding with the typical color to help warm up the palette overall. So again, the materials, so we also did provide rooftop screens to shield the AC condensers we have on the roof. We do have typical residential style furnaces that will be concealed within, but there's the AC condenser portion, which will be up on the roof in the flat portion. So there is a screen to block that. We also provided a photometric plan. There is a requirement to achieve a 0.4 foot candle ratio at the parallel parking spaces, and our new concept does provide that. There's really no room on the site for a physical light pole, so we have wall-mounted lighting. Again, it's full cut-off, so it's shielded, and we try to achieve candle at the property line, but it's tough to do to meet the 0.4 foot candles than 0. So there might be a little bit of spill, but for the most part, it's as tight as we could get it for that light fixture. And then in our previous design, I believe we showed a trash enclosure at the back. We now propose to keep all the trash within and then do curbside pickup, which is allowed for the ordinance, I believe. There are a few items that we are requesting relief from, and I think it is mentioned in the report that LSL provided, and then in our follow-up response. And some of those had to do with the trees in the parking lot. We're requesting more of a narrow maple tree due to the overhead lines in the parking lot. So I think that won't impact the power lines as much to go to that narrow tree. We're also asking to use an evergreen hedge along Livernois to shield that first run of parallel parking spaces, and that's just for consistency with our design. We do have, a hedgerow along the front of the buildings to shield the porches, so we think that'll be continuous design across the Livernois front. So we feel a short masonry wall might look out of place in that area. It's not continuous or it's not a continuous design. And we also feel that there will be no headlight issues there, as that's a one-way drive, so the cars will be pulling into the site, so you won't see the lights shining. So I think that evergreen hedge is a nice design for that area.
Wait, I'm sorry, can you clarify where you're talking about right now, this hedgerow where?
Sorry, let me see if I can figure this out. If we can go to, it might be more helpful if I pointed to it. This would be, the landscape plan might be easier to see here, and yeah, I think there's a pointer over here. So these are the two buildings. This is our main drive coming into the site. So we're talking about this area right here. They're asking for a masonry screen, but we're proposing more of an evergreen, deciduous type screen.
The renderings from that side, so you can kind of see the evergreen.
Okay, so you're just talking about the 10 feet of the very southern end of your property.
Sorry, just that little.
Right where you see the dashed lines that look like the parking space right there, right
On the edge of the parallel.
Yeah, right there. So that's a one-way drive, so the cars pull into the site, so the headlights won't really shine out. So we think that's helpful there. And then the other place we're asking for relief from is along the western property line. There's an existing wooden fence there right now that screens that entire lot line, so we ask to keep that wood fence there as is. We could paint the fence, but we do feel it's in good shape, and we can paint it to make a continuous, clean look in the back. The trees that I mentioned earlier are right here. There's a parking lot tree here and here, and there's overhead lines in the back, so the tight footprint on that tree won't impact the lines as much. I should also point out to you, these are some of the be more helpful now coming up. These are the areas buffers, so there's deciduous evergreen type shrubs there that help break up the height of the building in that area. Same thing along the northern face. We have the same hedgerow along the front of the building too. So it's a good design that our landscape architect helped put together. We're still keeping the same green space in between the buildings as a buffer and just a small, quiet place for the residents.
Those two trees in the back are actually proposed trees. They're added to the site. There's no trees there currently right now or any sort of landscape planting. So.
That's a good point. The floor plans haven't changed much. You'll see here that there is a slight step in the building right here to help break those facade lines up. It might be more evident on some of the renderings here. Might be able to see it. This is the northern face. It is stepped here, so we have the metal. There's a brick material in the metal. In the previous design, that line ran all the way across and was pretty long and monotonous. And you can see it here too on the. There's the one hedgerow to shield the parallel parking spaces. And this is just an interpretation of the landscape architect's design, but it gives you the general idea of the type of a hedge we're providing. So along the building, and then this shows the brick veneer right here, metal in between that, and then brick veneer at the back to help break that line up. We also did adjust the roof line a bit too. In the very first design we presented back in April, this angled roof line ran all the way across. So we did break that up a little bit too to provide that over the main living space and also the master bedroom space to the back. So we're just trying to react to the comments that you initially had. And we can answer any questions you have regarding the drawings that we submitted today, or any questions about the design as well. Thank you.
I apologize, I was not at the meeting where you had the discussion on this, so I did miss that. So if this was talked about when I was there, I apologize.
Oh,
but
sorry about that.
Just so I understand, you guys are still sharing access with the museum in the rear of the museum property?
Correct.
And that's not, you can't go through there, can you? Is it just access parking for the museum, or is that, can you drive back behind the museum and get further south?
You can drive there.
Yeah,
There's an
right
opening.
behind the museum, and then there's a parking block that stops it from going into the fire department.
Right.
There's just, okay, so it's stopped.
It's separated
Everything
from.
is stopped. You cannot go past.
Because of bumper blocks, I mean, it's not a wall.
Right, but I mean, it's not cut through. It can't be used for people to
Right. Fire department's trucks are back there and equipment.
Gotcha. Are these for sale or for rent units?
They're good for sale.
Are they for sale? Have you had a chance to talk to any of the neighbors behind the property?
I actually had talked to some of the people around the property and actually shown them a few of the renderings, and they were pretty receptive to it. Like the idea of something different than that that's all that's sitting there, just a vacant site right now.
Right. I guess I'm concerned about the three parcels that butt up to you in the rear. We know the northernmost one is kind of being is vacant right now and is going to be redeveloped for some type of unit as well. But then you have the two existing single-family homes. And so you've indicated so there's an existing wood fence that runs the entire length of the property?
Correct.
Is that your fence?
I believe it's I don't know. It might be the property behind us fence. I couldn't tell you.
The concern I have with waiving the screening is if it's those property owners and then, let's say, in a couple of years it falls apart or needs repair, then it's really on the single-family residential homes to provide a buffer to your development, whereas it's really the owner should be on you to provide a buffer from them. And so if the existing fence is yours and that you will maintain, the maintenance of that and ensure its longevity, then I'm okay with that. If it's not yours and it's going to be the onus on these residential neighbors behind you to provide the screening, then I'm not okay with that.
Well, we
you understand the
maintain
difference?
the fence regardless. I mean, we're going to be the owners of the condos as well. I'm also the constructor, so I'm involved from the entire process. So if the fence is going to be on my property, obviously we would maintain it to keep it consistent with our property.
Well, I think that's, if I may through the chair, that's the crux of it, though. If it's not on your property, perhaps the owner doesn't want you to touch it. And so the issue becomes, and I think it could be resolved by adding a condition to the proposal that says, if the fence is determined to be on your property, you'll maintain it and we'll allow the variance. If it's not yours, though, we don't really have any right to, I think, to allow the variance in that instance.
Okay. Understandable.
Right, because again, I would just hate to see in the future, let's say it comes down and then you're like, oh, well, we just put a chain link fence up or something, which doesn't provide that screening. So we want to ensure that there's a solid visual barrier between the properties. That's your responsibility to provide. So if you're using what's existing now, great, but I'm concerned 5-10 years from now that it's still going to be on you to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, I'd like to see that as an amended condition to the proposal.
And I think probably through the property sale with the city, I would think a survey was probably done, so we, could probably figure that out in short order.
Well, I mean, a lot of times those fences are built right on the property line.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, really, I guess without going out there, I don't remember if it's continuous across your entire property and that's the only place that fence exists, likely the American Legion put it in. If it's different on one property than different on the next, then likely property owner did that piecemeal. And so I just want to ensure, again, that there's going to be a continuous screen there, not just today, but in the future.
Of course, that's a great point. We do have a survey for the property, and we'll speak with Noack and Frost on that topic too, just to verify that it is in our lot or not.
Right. Well, that's why I asked if you talked to the neighbors at all, if that has come up in talking to those three houses behind you.
I don't know if it was exactly houses. It was neighbors walking their dogs right around our property, and we were just kind of striking up conversation with the neighborhood.
But you didn't approach the houses that abut you? Okay. Yeah, I would suggest you have that conversation with those neighbors about that shared property line and how you're going to maintain a fence there in the future. Okay. All right, other questions, thoughts from others? Yeah, I mean, it's zoned for this. This is the type of housing style we were looking to, diversify the types of houses we have, the units, and I think this is a great location. I think you're going to do great, and so we just want to make sure we're not creating a nuisance for existing residents. So like I said, I really encourage you to get out and talk to those neighbors before construction starts, before the bulldozers come out, because that's when City Hall gets the phone calls and wants to know what's going on. So, and obviously you're going to have, like you said, on-site maintenance. Again, the only concern I have about the shrubbery right against the sidewalk is, if shrubs as they grow, they can become unruly, and if they're poking out, and then it's hard to get around. You have those shrubs kind of right on the sidewalk. So I'm not sure if they could be set back, a little bit, so that I don't know how much play you have.
I'm sure we can adjust. I mean, that band is I'm probably 5 feet wide.
Yeah, we can.
6
Definitely
feet wide along the sidewalk.
So I just want
we could set them back into the property line.
Yeah, just so that we're thinking again of future infringement onto the sidewalk, keeping those back a little bit. So
Yeah, because we have the 3 parallel parking spaces here, but this is a little landscape bed for a tree, so we might be able to tighten it up. We want to make sure there's enough
for sure.
area to plant that tree, but we can tighten it up. That's a good point.
I'd like to move in the matter of 1741 Livernois, the planning commission The site plan based on the dated received by the Planning Department on July 27th, 2016, and today, August, what is it, 16th? 17th, 2016, with the following findings and conditions as listed in the packet, with the addition of the condition that the owner determine the ownership of the fence along the back. If he does indeed own it, it's okay to maintain that, and if not, then the screening needs to be addressed.
We have a motion by Commissioner Martin. Do I have support?
Support.
Support by Williamson. Discussion?
I think, to the chair, the only other thing that Historical Society Museum reminded me, there's, I think, some medallions that are in the building that they'd like transferred to them before demolition starts, and I think you're already aware of that.
We still have plans.
Great.
I'm assuming, well, I guess we have a motion on the table, that you're starting to start construction here this year?
Yes. Based on this approval, that gets us to the next step for this year. Yeah.
Okay.
So we just put the construction fence in and starting to get ready to go. So
Good deal. Okay.
I like this. I know the liquor store is excited. So.
they are very excited.
I'm sure people are going to be excited that there's
What
liquor
I've heard,
store.
I've not been in there. I just what I heard.
The word on the street.
The word on the street is Joe's is happy. But no, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. It's a nice addition to the area.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have a motion on the table. Any final other questions, comments? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks again for all your help.
Okay, that's it for new business. Next up, we have 5 discussion items, the first of which is 928 East Head Mile Road, another multiple family development. Justin, if you want to brief us?
Sure. There's been some initial discussions about redeveloping the former El Shaddai Church over on East 10 Mile, located between, I think, Horton and Inman Street, into potentially multiple family homes, residential apartments. Right now, there's been discussion about 28 to 30 units, mixture of 1 and 2 bedroom units, with some of the amenities you'd expect. The property is zoned R3, and generally meets the 2008 master plan guidelines for urban residential. So the use makes a lot of sense there, being located on a major street. The property is kind of interesting in that on 2 of the streets, on Horton and Inman, there is some traffic blocks that I think were implemented in the 90s. The applicant's interested in potentially working with the neighborhood to see if those are still necessary and the city's thoughts on that. So we're going to look at that with all the other traffic calming that we've been looking into recently. But in initial conversations with staff, we talked about, the appropriate amount of parking spaces, the building configuration, with the concept plan, the building up on the front side of the building on 10 Mile, there wasn't really pedestrian access and landscaping to the existing sidewalk there, so applicants interested in adding that to the plans and having a more active street front. But really just wanted to get your feedback generally. The use is permitted, but before they submitted a full site plan, I wanted to get some of your feedback. I actually don't see the applicant here, so I thought he might have just walked in, but.
I do have one question through the chair. The city's currently pending a lawsuit with the billboard guy in circuit court, and if there's a favorable settlement to that lawsuit, on that stretch there's a billboard that could be erected. Is that abutting this property? Where along that line is that billboard going?
I thought that was more west, but I'm not 100% familiar with that case.
I just want to make sure that the owners are aware of what potential future could go there. So
yeah.
I was trying to place it on 10, and
Yeah, I thought it was a little further west, but
okay,
I can follow up.
I just would be good to check to make sure there's
Definitely.
No surprises.
Okay. It's not.
Apparently not. So.
We'll to the back of the discussion item, and if they come later, otherwise they've lost their window.
Okay.
Okay, which is going to mess up my packet order. No, so I got to save the. Problem printing double-sided. It's like you can't just separate things. Just send them. Okay. All right, so next up was 1450 Jarvis Street site plan discussion. Are they here?
I guess before I start, is someone here representing 1450 Jarvis? Okay.
Moving on.
Moving on up, people. Moving on up.
Yes.
All right, next up, I see we 448 Street family.
Yes. We're here.
Woohoo!
So, Design House obviously has been before this board a few times regarding Ferndale House project. Arbor Investments has recently obtained purchase agreements for the 3 single-family homes on Withington Street. Those homes are zoned R4, and the applicants brought in some proposed plans for potentially 40 apartment units, smaller in size. They're targeted to people with looking for a smaller city living, potentially 1 car to no cars. There's some amenities of rooftop patio access, adding bicycle racks as well. The Withington building would actually be connected to the primary building at Ferndale House, but separated in that it generally meets the R4 regulations. In discussions with Design House, we'd kind of talked about the lack of on-site parking. This would require a decent amount of shared parking with Ferndale Foods potentially, who also has a shared parking agreement for the main property. So that was a bit of a concern, but they wanted to come in and discuss it as well. The number of curb cuts on Withington, and then just overall site circulation. Just so the Planning Commission is aware, the applicants have put forth an application to vacate the alley and take control of the alley. So council is going to consider that in a September meeting. So that would give them a bit more control of the overall site circulation if this or a similar plan were presented. But the applicants are here. Any questions, and they can provide more detail on the overall plan.
Okay, thank you.
And Peter, if you do want to pull up the the site plan, it's on the desktop there.
Yes. Okay.
So you can just hit escape and close that existing PDF.
There we go. Which one do you think it is?
Probably that one.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you just hit view in the top left, full screen.
Top left view. And then I move with the arrow? Yeah, okay. Hi, thank you. Good evening. Peter Stuhlreier, In-House Architecture. Here tonight representing the development team, particularly Galkarp. And we just want to talk about the next phase of Ferndale House. This is an idea. We've kind of kicked around quite a few ideas for these parcels, and this is where we have landed firmly enough to want to come and talk to you all about it. This project is basically an extension of that building that's underway now. It includes 40 more one-bedroom units or studio units. Some are quite small, and it has a slight parking deficit. It also covers over some of the DDA district and crosses zoning districts. So it's got quite a few difficulties from a threading the needle kind of thing. So we're here just to talk about those things. Maybe a direction to turn, or maybe to stay the course. So we know we can accommodate the parking off-site if needed, and we also think that this particular product on the building may be of a unit type small enough and affordable enough that we may attract some local workers that don't even have a car. So we certainly don't know that we want to try to achieve the 1.5 parking ratio. On the other part, in the CBD, we were one spot per unit. This particular zoning district, some of which is 1.5, wouldn't be appropriate for the unit types that we're proposing. So it's basically very similar to the building. It is a simple extension of the building, and I can show a few things. You can see it attaches. so they can use the same amenities. All the residents can use the amenities already existent in Ferndale House. There's an aerial. And those are the only graphic images I have. That's the Withington side along the road. So, and as you know where we are, we're kind of next to a 6-story multifamily building, and we're kind of, wrapping it in our arms. And we've spoken with Heather about the fencing and sharing some access to the new park, making it easier for the two sites to kind of coexist, and abandoning the alley. So those things are all underway.
May I ask, I think the number one question, I know some of these are not necessarily appropriate for the 1.5 measure, but in your shared parking agreement with Ferndale Foods, is there assignment involved? What happens if Ferndale Foods decides to sell out and redevelop? Where does that leave you for parking?
Well, I believe those are executed leases, so I don't know that I think that whoever, sells out has to carry the lease with them.
The lease, then.
Yeah.
I see, okay. And then also, I was really shocked by the size of some of these units. Now, I may be turning into a fat old man, which I'm ready to accept. 500 square foot apartment, there's a market for that?
Yeah.
New IKEA?
Ask me how big my house is.
Well, your house is bigger than that, isn't it?
Yeah. 500's pretty big. I've seen them at about 350.
Okay,
In Metro Detroit?
Well, Ann Arbor, Detroit, New York.
Okay, thanks.
Through the chair, I have a question about, again, relating to the size, but actually of the building itself. I know you mentioned the 6-story building immediately adjacent, but the multifamily buildings across the street, do you have a sense, or can you tell us what the potential is between what's proposed here and what's across the street?
I don't have that information with me. I know that Ferndale House is 50 feet tall. That's the limit on the CBD. This site has a much higher limit. I believe it's 70 or something like that in this zoning district. But the typical 2-story commercial building or multifamily building that's up and down Withington is probably, if it's got a peaked roof, 40, 35 feet. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, so just for clarifications, I think Justin, so I understand. So obviously the one that we've already approved that's under construction, Old State Lot, is CBD.
Correct.
And that's 4 stories.
That's correct.
We're proposing here, this is zoned R4. Also proposed 4 stories with the first floor parking.
Right.
And it still meets the setbacks height requirements of the R4? Is that correct?
The setbacks were met. The building height, I was just double checking that, but
it's 60 in
60.
R4.
60,
Yes.
yeah, 60.
Okay.
So really the only concern is the parking.
Correct.
And so obviously the buildings will be connected. They're going to be interiorly connected?
Yes.
So there'll be like a common corridor, hallway?
Common hallway. They can share the front door. They can share different elevator banks, different stairs.
Okay, so I'm looking at just the site plan, So it looks like it's 2-way circulation on this site, and that would funnel down to the 9 Mile site, which is 1-way circulation on the parking?
That's right, yeah.
And there's a stair bank that kind of separates that aisle, is that, so is there
There's two
aisles that connect?
Right, there's a single stair on the south end of the new building, and a stair with an elevator on the north end of the new building.
Right, but I'm just trying to think of vehicular circulation.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, so it looks like there's the dumpsters, then there's an aisle, then there's the stairs, and then it looks like there's bike parking, so that's not cross-act. I mean, obviously you can't cross there.
Right.
So there's just one kind of drive aisle that connects the north to the south.
That's right. And these are assigned spaces, so we don't assume by any means that this is the public winding around in these parking lots looking for a spot. This is, you get your number, and that's your spot.
Talk to me about the cross-hatched area in the southwest corner that says parking easement for 9 Mile.
Okay, the funeral home required us to dedicate an easement on our property that we're purchasing for them to maintain flow from front to back of theirs. So the crosshatch is an easement that we're staying off of and allowing the funeral home to continue to use for their flow of automobiles.
And that's how it currently operates, I'm assuming. It's currently
Yeah,
there.
she owns both parcels and it
Right,
just
so she
kind
kind
of
of
operates.
just, the property lines have been blurred, and so
Correct.
she just needs
Drives
to maintain
across-
her access.
She drives across her own property lines, right?
Right, so you just have to not be able to use that portion of your property.
That's right.
And so, and again, I'm sorry, is that separated? Will that, can people drive through the funeral
No,
home
it's
to this, or
fenced.
there's a brick wall, there's a
Brick
fence,
wall,
or
yeah.
something between those two?
It is fenced. It's no access.
Yeah, I mean, I think just personally speaking, I think, we've talked about, we knew that this project had, they were looking at future expansion. We talked about that as part of the parking waivers that were granted in the past. I think with the 6-story housing complex next to this, being adjacent to the CBD, this is kind of something we've talked about. I'm surprised that it can go so easily without being rezoned, to be honest. I thought it would have to be rezoned to accommodate this type of thing, but it sounds like if it's meeting the requirements, really the only requirement that's not being met is the parking.
Right.
And it would seem silly to rezone something just to essentially get a parking exemption, just get the parking exemption instead of.
Right.
But the parking is a concern, as Councilman Martin indicated. I mean, how long is the lease for, do you know, with?
I'm not sure, 15? 5 years? 5 years.
But, I mean, after 5 years, there's no guarantee. So after 5 years, they could terminate.
We have an option, but if they develop, yes.
Right. I think it's this real struggle of trying to plan for the future versus planning for how people are today with their automobiles. And so I think it worries me less than I think it's going to worry some of the neighbors when this comes down, the people who live on that block. But I think.
And as you can see, I don't have an overall aerial, but the Phase 2 is much closer to the shared parking than Phase 1.
And the only connection to that is through the public sidewalk, correct?
That's across the back of the funeral home parking lot, so probably 70 feet.
I'm sorry, say it one more time?
About 70 feet across the funeral home parking lot to the Ferndale Foods lease spaces.
Right, but the connection is through the
Yeah, you have to
city
walk on the
sidewalk. There's
That's
not a
correct.
separate path.
And-
It's
and-
just the sidewalk.
Yes,
Right.
and that's why we located the common entry where we did, so that
Do you have a reason why you needed 2 curb cuts for this on Withington?
There's currently 3.
yeah.
Well, there's
I
3
don't-
houses.
Yeah, but you can reduce it.
I don't necessarily have a good reason. I mean, just flow. I mean, knowing that the traffic counts aren't going to change, whether it's 2 or 3, there's a few less turns, a few less, a little bit less confusion. It's only a few cars that are coming and going.
Could that be reduced to 1?
It could be,
The center, potentially the center curb cut?
absolutely.
I just want to say two quick things. I'm Gal. I'm the guy who's in front of you, in case you forgot, or wanted to forget me. But anyway, Pat and also Dolores, they approached us, I don't know if you remember at the meetings, and because the housing is right next door, wow, it would be really nice if it was more apartments. So we didn't, think to all of a sudden just say, let's buy these homes and keep going. They thought it was a really nice idea, so that's why we're here, and we're seeing if it work. Pat is very, easy to work with, and if it doesn't work exactly this way, she has parking, she has access, so, that's why we're here, to hear what you have to say and come up with the best plan for it. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the 2 curb cuts bother me. I guess I don't think because you're not changing the flow, you're just narrowing it down onto the one pathway. I don't think 2 is problematic in my mind, especially if you're envisioning the Housing Commission. Most of those folks don't have cars. There's not a ton of traffic from the Housing Commission.
Actually, why it bothers me.
What's that?
Through the chair, that's
Yeah.
actually why it bothers me a
We'll
little
talk
bit.
more about that, yeah.
Thinking about our neighbors.
who are walking or in scooters or often without cars, additional traffic near them. That was actually one of my concerns, was additional traffic near our Ferndale housing residents, and how we could make sure that they are safely separated from cars coming in and out that may not see them, because they are often pedestrians or in scooters. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every curb cut increases that, pedestrian vehicle potential conflict. So,
Okay, thanks.
Through the chair, just adding on to that, though, if you go down to one curb cut here and you have people constantly jockeying for position to come in and out, I can see that as being almost more of a hazard.
And just to add really quick, one of the options, and we're all looking at the same thing, so the funeral home access, we did talk to Pat, if we had to continue the area through and use her exit as one of the exits as well. Because that was a thought, maybe there are too many curb cuts. So
say that one more time.
So if you look at the funeral home exit, if you come in that way where their easement is, where the X's are, and then you sneak back through that way, if the curb cuts was a problem where we have it detailed, we could use potentially that as an exit, so there's only 2 curb cuts on Livingston.
So maintain that alley space?
No, the alleys is ours. Well, it's not ours yet, but they're giving it to this side. So you can continue going straight through, and then we probably have to adjust the garbages, right? Other than that, because she almost gets no traffic through. So curb cuts an issue. We all see it that way. We're happy to talk about that.
I guess I'm not understanding I'm trying to follow the solution, but I'm not visualizing it.
So
you were saying you cut through the funeral home?
There's a possible connection to both the housing and the funeral home.
So if you come right down here, this garbage can move, and you can just keep going out there.
But I thought we just talked that there was a wall there that separates that.
No, there's no wall. There's a little fence. There's like a 4-foot tall fence. But she is amenable to whatever makes sense. She just wanted to make sure that you could keep going this way through her funeral home. So if you came from the back, you go in or out this way. And actually, she's right here, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's right here. Sorry about that.
But
so she wanted to make it so we could go like this as well.
There's no wall here. That's
right. It's just a little fence.
That's just a curb.
Right.
But it's a bit elevated.
There's a wall back here.
Yeah.
Right. So it would have to be the same height, but this would have to get moved if the curb cuts are an issue. That's all I'm saying. It's just another option.
But and again, without talking to are there funeral processions and things that are using that circulation in a very kind of structured way that, funeral homes tend to have lines of cars lined up in certain exact ways. I don't see that as like a pass-through with people coming and going from their, their daily place of living.
It's an option that's out there that everybody's cooperating.
Yeah, definitely cross access is usually a good thing, but funeral homes are kind of a little different of an animal.
Potentially.
Through the chair, I've got a couple questions. I wanted to ask, so this is currently conceived as residential only. Is that only because of the zone that it's in, or is that just, because I know we changed a little bit with the one on 9 Mile, but you had more options there because you were in CBD. Is it residential only because you're in the residential zone, or is it residential only because you want it to be residential?
It's residential only because of the context, for one, the appropriateness of having commercial back on Whittington, probably not, but, and the zone. So, it's all, part of it. And the configuration of building on a platform and parking below, not a big opportunity for commercial down there.
That answers my question. So there are a number of mature trees, and I think it's one of the reasons that the Withington West building sort of recedes into the background a little bit sometimes, and people forget we have a 6-story building in our downtown, is because of the great mature trees. And I wondered if you guys could talk a little bit about how some of the mature trees will be handled and or replaced to make it feel less imposing along that west facade.
Okay, we're having an arborist assess the trees
Yeah.
and provide a report, so that when we make a submittal, we'll have that. And any kind of tree replacement required, I'm sure we'll, if it's on-site or off-site, I'm sure we can accommodate.
Okay.
And I think we're providing some new street trees along Withington. But there's not a lot of green space here. This is an urban building.
But as proposed, I mean, all trees are coming out.
Yeah. And I think there's 3 big ones, but the health is questionable, the species is questionable, so we'll have a report for that. And then however that lines up with the replacement code, we'll accommodate it.
Through the chair, what's proposed to separate this property on the west of the property line from the single-story residential that's immediately adjacent to it? Is there going to be a fence or a wall or anything like that?
On our west is a parking lot.
Okay, are all the houses in between there going then?
There aren't any
Yeah,
houses.
it's Ferndale Foods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's parking lot and then Ferndale Foods.
By themselves.
These are all coming out.
I thought there was one more left there.
No,
Good.
No, it's Ferndale Foods. But so is it just the existing wall that's there for Ferndale Foods, which will separate? Or I guess there's just a fence.
That's not the Ferndale Foods wall, that's
White
the,
trees along the edge, maybe?
that's
It's the funeral home.
funeral home parking lot.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So this is a funeral home.
Yep, that's her back exit there. So along that western facade where you put Spalding and Curtin, any ideas on how to make it feel and or look sort of less boxy and imposing, so it doesn't look like you've just plunked down on Withington, right? So you've got these, like I said, these great mature trees that help sort of shield and blend Withington West into the neighborhood. Any thoughts or ideas on that western facade and how it could look sort of less as an edge when you get to the funeral home?
I think that we can develop the facade materials, the scale.
Okay.
I don't know that there's a lot of vegetative answers to that question.
Okay.
But I think long term, to be honest with you, that moving west is all in play. So not just for us, but for whoever. I've been in discussions. So who knows? But that's what's developing.
Mm-hmm. But you're moving,
Off the record.
regardless of how far you move west. If you're on Withington, you're moving west. You're certainly in a transitional space, but you're again moving toward residential as you get back to the other edge of Ferndale Foods. So just thinking, and we had the conversation with the folks on Livernois, thinking about that facade and how to make it look sort of less like a warehouse as it begins to move more visibly into a residential space.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, screen walls work. I think even street trees work. I mean, they get tall fast. I mean, we're not, the trees that are there are taller than the building we're proposing. So, I mean,
Yes.
so
Right.
even a tall building isn't tall compared to, a 20-year-old good tree.
But there might not be room for 20-year-old trees. So, I mean,
Still be trees, right? I mean,
is there room to put them on the site as proposed, to put trees back in?
on the right-of-way, at the edge of the right-of-way, there's plenty of room for a line of street trees.
But
On
not
the north,
necessarily
but not on the west.
along the west. Okay.
Right.
And the less curb cuts, the more street trees.
Yeah.
True.
I'm really thinking about that, the abruptness of the western facade, and is it going to look like, how do we break it up and make it less industrial, institutional, I guess is the word I'm looking for, feeling. But you're the architect, so you can figure it out. I don't know the answer, but that's the thing. As we again move to the west along Withington, it's a transitional space. It's a really great opportunity to develop. But you are moving through and then closer again to residential. That's largely brick and sort of well treated.
Bless you.
I know the answer to this question, but has there been any discussion with the Ferndale Housing Commission, the 6-story building? Because it seems like even just talking, I mean, they have a parking lot right next to you, and don't know how well-used that parking lot is, or has there been any discussion about shared parking with them?
I would offer that's not an appropriate place for it. There's not many spots there, and what is there is probably 70% taken on any given day.
I don't know, so I didn't know if there's been any
And I think
dialogue with that.
there's been discussions mostly about the alley, but I think that in speaking with the Housing Commission director, there's some concern about HUD's requirements with shared parking and things like that, so she'd probably rather avoid it.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, just being a discussion item, I think this is kind of, again, like our last action item. You know, we're looking for housing diversity in the city. Closer to the downtown is the most appropriate location. Closest, closer to Woodward, and the different transit options that are coming. Obviously, with these small units, you're going to need access to other types of transportation. So, I think it's the right direction. I encourage you to speak to the neighbors, particularly the ones that are going to be directly across the street from this. I'm sure they'll have some thoughts as to what they would like to see in terms of landscaping or all those different types of things. Other thoughts from other?
Okay.
Yeah. How's the phase 1 coming along?
Very well.
Yeah.
Very well. Yeah.
Okay.
Building plans are in the review process, so.
It's a clean site. I haven't got one complaint.
Thank you. Good, yeah. Well, there was a few old basements down there, I'll be honest with you.
Were there?
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Did you find anything cool?
No, nothing cool. Jimmy Hoffa?
Hoffa? Yeah, I don't
thought he
know.
was on the Rialto.
Right.
Rialto.
Yeah.
He could be in the Rialto.
But,
All right, any other clarification or anything you're looking for?
I don't think so. I mean, my office and Justin will talk and try to, fine tune some more and put together a legitimate application.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have 241 Pearson Street, Revised St. James. Are the applicants here for that?
Yes.
Okay. If you would, Justin. on
Sure. So it has been a while since we've talked about the Woodward Senior Living Project. Some new players are involved, and so they've been evaluating. I think the most recent direction after council's approval of the special land use, the Planning Commission's direction was finalize landscaping and submit final site plans. Those were submitted, and then as the developers looked more at the site, talked about adjustment to some of the parking and how some of the units would be constructed. And so eventually the development team proposed adjusting the site plan to redevelop the former convent building, which is about 5,000 square feet on the southwest portion of the property. In order to get more units, they wanted to build a new facility. That would, in discussions with the city attorney, that would not affect their special land use, but would affect a new site plan. And so I thought it would be appropriate for them to come in and discuss it further. And then there's some...
To the chair, just to clarify, on the site plan it says addition. Is this an addition or a refurb of the convent building?
It would be a new building of the convent building. There are some adjustments to the initial building that I think are listed on the site plan as additions, including adding a new elevator, as the existing elevator wasn't really able to be fixed as far as I know, and then just some adjustments to the parking spaces. So applicants are here to talk further about their changes.
Good evening. My name is Alex Adler with Progress of Roots. I'm here representing JS Capital. This was
Paul Dunn, JS Capital.
So how do we maneuver around?
Yeah.
The conditions of site plan, or special land use, are usually based on a site plan.
So,
The site plan, we may come to different conclusion, you know what I mean? Like,
so basically, the existing convent building layout is not very well usable for senior housing. The way the spaces are, the way they lay out is just not conducive to what we need to do in the way of apartments and laying out and the amenities that are needed. That building, as we know it, the convent, it's been abandoned for about 10 years plus, and the building itself, it's also been abandoned for about 6 or 7 years. The abatement required for the convent building as it is would be significant, as opposed to tearing it down and replacing it with this building, with this new structure. That's really the main criteria why we're proposing to replace the convent building, for those two reasons.
Through the chair, as with the previous speakers, my guess is there's some historical significance to that building. So I would encourage you, before the wrecking ball comes, you talk to the historical societies to see if there's anything that perhaps would be of interest to them. That would be much appreciated.
Very well. We have spoke with Oprah, and yeah, Oprah through the state, correct? Yeah, we had discussions with Oprah through the state, and they have some mild suggestions that we're willing to incorporate into the plan. So
sure, I'm just thinking of the stuff that's there now before you knock it over that Historical Society may like.
Yeah, there's for sure. We'll make that happen.
I can set up that conversation.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, if we can just back up, I'm just trying to wrap my brain around this, because I know it's been a while since we've seen this project. And so the original project, had keeping the convent building, right, and retrofitting it for units.
Correct.
And you're saying that's no longer possible because
the size of the apartments or senior housing units inside there would be very tiny, I guess.
That was what was proposed. I mean, they knew that when it was approved, and that was what the applicant proposed.
The first group designed it, and we couldn't build it the way they had designed it. It just didn't work.
There were,
to get the unit count up.
Yeah, if you're speaking to the original design that we weren't part of. There were some errors, some flaws in that planning that were not constructible as they were shown in that plan.
Who's the owner of this?
Diocese.
Is it the diocese?
James Capital and the Archdiocese is partnered with us with development.
So it's a partnership between the diocese and yourself?
Yes.
And they'll maintain ownership as well?
Correct.
And you'll just take care of the building? Are you like leasing it from them?
We have a management company that's going to operate it for us. They're just coming in as an investment partner.
Okay.
Archdiocese is.
Okay, so to summarize, from the plan that was provided to us and approved back a year and a half ago, this convent building was originally going to be restored, now it's going to be demolished. And what you're going to build in the place of what was there is a building of double the footprint? Because originally it says the convent building has a footprint of approximately 4,900 square feet, and the new building will be approximately footprint of 9,300 square feet. So you're doubling the size.
Almost doubling. I'm going to pull out a diagram for you. This is a plan that shows the existing convent building the way it is, and you can see how it jets in and out. So what we've done is we were able to utilize the spaces, those void areas, and that's how the footprint was able to get bigger. We're only extending it maybe 15 feet or so this way. I think maybe another 5 feet out this way towards the north. So what we really did is we tried to incorporate and take advantage of all those void areas and the footprint of the new building.
And the height?
And the height is nearly almost the same.
Nearly almost the same means give or take 5 feet, give or take 10 feet, 1 foot.
6 stories.
Yeah, the convent as it was is 3 stories, and we are proposing a 3-story building.
Okay. And the number of units, so you're doubling the square footage, but do I understand you're not really increasing the number of units at all?
I can't remember the old number of units, to be honest. I believe the new facility will have 30 units.
What was proposed overall by the other group, the units would be able to be drawn that way for code reasons. They were designed as proper square footage. So we started laying it out to keep our unit count at 100, 103. We had to extend the convent to make that count work.
Okay, so again, my question is, how many units are being proposed now versus how many were approved?
Well, I know there's 30 in the convent building now.
18 there before?
Yeah.
The overall unit count staying the same in the whole project. That hasn't changed.
Yeah.
The convent unit count increased by 12 units.
12 units, we believe.
But the overall count is still at 103. I think they came in at 104 originally.
Gotcha. I guess I'm a little, I don't, Justin, if you can maybe elaborate more on your discussions with the attorney, because I'm a little confused as to why this wouldn't need an amended special land use, because special land use has a lot of discretionary criteria that are determined based on a site plan. And a lot of them talk about compatibility with the neighborhood and all kinds of different things. And I feel like to me, if we're doubling the square footage of the size of a building and we're kind of changing things, why that doesn't amend the site or the special use plan. Part of that goes to then, again, notifying the neighbors who were led to believe one thing is approved and now something different is coming about. So how did the attorney come to that conclusion?
His thinking was that ultimately, you know, it would be the planning commission's discretion, but in his, you know, view of the plan, cursory view of the plan, the same number of units, the minimal number of changes to the parking lot, and minimal changes to the larger building. His thinking was that it, you know, would not be required for special land use if the planning commission didn't feel that it needed to be.
I would say, if I may, through the chair, you raise a great point, though, that perhaps we meet the minimum requirements, but that may not be the right thing to do. I like the idea that the neighbors have expectation, and now we're knocking down buildings in their neighborhood. Not that it, perhaps economically, it makes sense to do that. I'm not questioning that, but expectations of the community need to be reset.
Right. Okay. And again, the special land use to me, you know, is always tied to essentially a site plan. And again, those criteria that we look at and the findings we made were that it doesn't, you know, detract from, you know, the residential area. It's constructed and maintained harmonious with the existing character of the vicinity. And again, there's kind of this historic building that was always going to be part of it, and now it's not. And so I would prefer this to be as an amended special use permit that would go from planning commission to recommendation to council with a public hearing to the neighbors, because it is a big change in my opinion. Just the character.
I support that.
Okay.
Not opposed to it. I just want the public hearing. I want.
Right. I don't want to be accused of doing something that's not above board, because it's not what was approved before. And so, and I'm trying to understand. So I understand that we have a new engineer on board.
Correct.
But you were the same entity that was.
No.
So this is a whole different owners that were here before.
Yes.
So you're completely unrelated to the people that were here before us.
We were an investor of the original group, but we were involved with the site plan or any of the approvals. And then when they were failing to close the deal with the Archdiocese, we came in, we took the deal over. They are no longer involved, and we reviewed the plans that could actually be built. What they presented could not be built with that amount of units.
I guess I was actually thinking about this project, so I don't live far from this, and I've been wondering why it's been sitting and not happening. Is it still valid? Did it expire?
It would expire, I believe, at the end of this year. Actually, no. It's 2 years from council's approval, not this board's recommendation. So it would be January 2017.
I mean,
so it's coming
getting
up.
Close.
It is.
It's been a long time since we've seen
We
this.
did our some asbestos studies and some phase 2. There's some serious asbestos in the convent, so that's another reason too that we're going that route. The windows are all with caulk and the glazing asbestos based.
What's your revised time frame right now that you're hoping for?
We're trying to start probably October if we could. We're ready to start demo now, but we want to get the site plan approved. We wanted to do that. The church has almost vacated the school, getting all the stuff out of there. We're still working on that.
Through the chair, I've got a question. I'm looking, Justin, at our site plan conditions, I believe. Or no, is this our, yeah, these are our site plan conditions as opposed to our special land use conditions. So it's actually the last page of the first packet. One of the conditions was that the applicant, I just need to be reminded what this was about, and where I can find these guidelines, that the applicant provide building elevations demonstrating conformance to the city's architectural guidelines prior to final approval by staff. Any recollection as to what that seems like a very informal reference to something that isn't in the zone?
I tried to dig through the minutes too, because it was prior to me as well.
Right.
I didn't see anything clear on that. I can go back and listen to the video, but yeah, it was unclear to me in looking at the minutes.
It's just a very informal reference.
Right.
It's not a term we would use in the zoning code.
Right.
Because I'm sitting here asking myself what can be done to retrofit or save this building.
Right.
Vinyl siding, versus a beautiful Spanish tiled roof. It's a significant change. And when I saw the two cities' architectural guidelines, I'm like, what in the world were we talking about? Because it's not in the zoning code. So if you find anything, I would be interested to know what in the world.
No, yeah, I can keep digging, but yeah, especially because they were existing buildings, with most of the work being interior, but.
Well, and with respect to going back to just process, again, I want to do this the right way too. Is it still the same applicant? It seems like major players in that partnership has changed.
I think because the Archdiocese, I mean, yeah, you can make an argument either way, I think, because the Archdiocese, there's still partial owner, and so I think that was also part of the discussion with the city attorneys, same partial owner.
I have to assume, well, I guess I shouldn't. Has there been any effort to try to understand that the building is, you can't meet your needs because of X, Y, and Z, front facade, or work around certain elements to maintain some of the character that it provides?
We are into the possibility of saving portions of the wall and rebuilding them. For example, we're creating a new entryway at the center of the complex, and we want to create a brick facade with arches that duplicates what happens at the existing back of the convent center now. I've got a small illustration of that.
But instead of trying to replicate it, I mean, is there any way to look into whether it's feasible to, I guess, the facade facing Hazelhurst, to keep that wall and work around it?
Practically, it's difficult, but that's not to say we can't disassemble it and reassemble it. That's a possibility. It's probably more practical to disassemble and reassemble it than to try and save a wall.
I mean, just even going off of Commissioner Baker's comments, looking at what was here and what is here, and then looking at what you're proposing. Again, with the vine, I don't think the vinyl's going to fly.
That's okay. I think we've discussed making it all brick too. Maybe
all masonry product.
Yeah, all masonry. Maybe 2 tones of brick to match the existing building. Obviously, the lower portion was always meant to match the existing building structure, which is all brick and stone.
Yeah. Through the chair, I can only speak for myself, but one of the reasons there were 2 reasons I was so excited about this project. One is that it's very much needed for people need to age in place, and I even thought to myself when this first came up, oh my gosh, some of the people who sent their kids to St. James move into St. James.
Some of the kids at St. James can move into there now.
And then the other reason was that these buildings that have been so significant to our community for, if it's not 100 years, it's got to be close, would be preserved. And with all of the merging of of congregations and the changing and closing of buildings, that was a really special thing to be happening in Ferndale, was that we were going to be able to preserve the buildings.
The school will be changed out. Some repairs in the windows and tuck pointing.
All right, understand.
But I understand in this
For the
case,
most part, about 99% of all the windows are going to remain as they are in the school building. And
I think it's, I mean, this may sound like we're going too extreme, but it wasn't that long ago we lost another historic building, and in the long run, doing this right saves you guys grief from the public too, because there's a sensitivity in the community right now to losing historic buildings in the city, even if it is, you know, a minority piece of the property in general. So I think that's in part why we want to spend so much time on this and make sure we do it. What we do right, and including the public in that process. So.
And I think just going off that too, I understand your comments earlier about kind of squaring off the spaces, because for efficiencies of construction, and you want to create kind of this rectangle box, but kind of those cutouts kind of create some of the interest in the outdoor spaces and the nooks and crannies of this campus that has been, you know, there for forever. And so, you know, I think you might just want to go back in terms of the design and be more sensitive to the historic, not only facade, but the relationship of the buildings, and not just create a rectangle box next to this area that has more interest, both in varied wall lines and different things that create those interesting little areas that, you know, as we know, seniors will be sitting out in courtyards and things of that nature. So those provide those interesting outdoor spaces that are there now, that were part of the approved plan, that will be lost as part of this rectangle box that's now being proposed. So I guess in terms of discussion, I think we're all, you know, echoing Commissioner Baker's, I think this was a very exciting reuse of a building. I too thought this was genius. Like, these Catholic schools in general that are not being needed, and transform them into the need of this, you know, senior living. I think it's great, but I think we need to be very sensitive to that convent building and understanding that there may be limitations for you, but so what can we do to better respect them moving forward?
Construction-wise, we could probably do something with the south elevation on Hazelhurst, and then keep that courtyard between the two buildings where the porch is now, maybe create like a facade on the elevation of the school between the convent, or on the convent between the school and the convent right there. We're actually, right now, the convent finished floor is probably almost 3 feet higher than the school floor. So the new building, we're going to lower it, so the transition's a little more even for the people to go back and forth. The main dining area will be in the main school, and we can create more of a private courtyard in that area, too.
Yeah, so, yeah. I think you'll end up with a better product, as I think we were talking about. So in terms of breaking ground in October, I think that's going to be a little ambitious. We're just talking about, I think you need to rethink kind of that layout of that area. And I think you've heard, I think we want it as another special land use, whether it be an amended special land use or how you want to That requires a public hearing, so the neighbors will be noticed, back to the Planning Commission, and from there it's a recommendation to Council. So you went back to the Planning Commission until at least September, then you go to Council in October. So you'll at least October before you can get an approval from the public kind of review process.
What we will do, we'll clean up the elevation, show a little better color rendering of the Hazelhurst side, and create some kind of a courtyard between the buildings.
Right. Like I said, I just really encourage you to, because again, part of this, the attraction of this was really that blending with the neighborhood of something that's been there forever. And so I don't want to just cut that out and put something new. Like, let's try to.
And we'll share the phase 2 report on that too, so you fully understand what's going on in the town right now, structurally and.
We will create architecture that will respond and be sensible to the community, and it will be similar to the convent building in both materials, color, and shape.
Okay. So we don't expect to see any vinyl?
No.
Okay. Any other comments?
Through the chair, the south facade in particular, I mean, that area right along Hazelhurst is the area that probably has the most interaction with the public. I would pay particular attention to that. And if you can really, because when I look at the elevation that you have now on the plan, and I compare it to the existing, that's something where you're going to see some dissension within the community.
Yeah.
If you really focus on that south facade and make it more welcoming and echoing more of what's there now and what people are used to, I think that your public will be much more accepting of the change.
Any other questions or clarifications you were hoping for?
As we go through this next design process, is there anybody on the board that has issues with how far we've come out with the building? Like, so that we could have more lean to where I'm not pushing the building out too far, but I still want to be able to make some cuts and break up the facade and try and match back to what you were just talking about with the existing convent building. So specifically, like on the south side, to get our planning where we needed it, I pushed it out almost, well, as far out as I felt would be comfortable for the community, but it seems like we could still even come out a little bit more so that we're not taking away the space that is needed from the senior dwelling units, but still be able to cut the building back and break it up a little bit.
Well, what's the setback requirement there? Do you know, Justin?
That's what I was just checking. I mean, are you asking for a variance or?
I guess with
I'm just asking for your
fake boxes on the front to get some architecture that pushes out, so we keep the inside floor plan the same.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I know isn't going to work operationally, they were asking to put the dumpster bed in, and I know we're going to have to move that.
Yeah, I was saying, if those are the dumpsters right there, that's not going to
They want
fly.
a compactor, so I'll figure out something else with that. They won't be going.
No, they will not.
Yeah, I was just trying to get the feel for your comfort level coming out, because the existing school comes out farther past what we were proposing.
Well, just that little one-story bump out, but most of the school is set back.
That's right.
Again, you have to meet the district requirements.
Right,
I mean,
so
you
it's-
couldn't grant a variance from that.
Right, so it's R3. It's normally, front setback is normally 10. So I'm not sure what's shown on the drawing, but.
Okay.
Looks like it's lined up with the house.
I would guess that the existing structure is.
I guess I would just say, if you can preserve the trees that are there. I mean, there's 2 trees that are there right now. Try not to cut those down too. You know, the most that you can keep there that's there currently, the better it will be for you.
On the east side, we expect old garage to be demoed. There's not any landscaping on the east side. So that'll clean that up, actually.
Yeah, and there's going to be some also some additional grass that we're adding and taking some of the paving away along the north side, along the back area there. Right now, it's all paved.
Mhm.
It's all blacktop, and we're going to cut some of that away and create some courtyards and grass areas.
Yeah, that's a welcome change. So I see also, so there's carports proposed
Yes.
and a maintenance garage. So we'll want to see all that. And if you're going into that, of, you know, breaking up some of that, then I'm imagining you'll add some greenery, some maybe parking lot islands, something, if you're breaking up with carports and maintenance garages and things.
It's a good suggestion. We worry about the parking count. We're fine now.
Driving?
Yeah.
Well, the ordinance is 1 per unit, but with senior living, it's probably going to be 60% of the time we'll have units.
Exactly.
Common sense, we're not going to need all those.
Right.
To meet the ordinance, we have to have 103. Is that 1 per unit, Justin?
Yeah, for R3 it is. So I mean, if this board would entertain.
Senior living doesn't have different standards?
Yeah, it's one space per dwelling unit.
Yeah, I thought it was 1 per space.
Originally, maybe through the chair, there's a component in senior living, but wasn't there a quasi-assisted living component to this, or no?
No, there's not.
No.
No, there's no members, no. It's all
Okay.
seniors.
There's no
All right, thanks.
This is the licensing and the operators.
But there's shared parking with the St. James Church
Correct.
still,
Part of
right?
our building, per our sales agreement and our development agreement, because they need a storage building to give up the garage, that's what we're doing. One of those things.
Yeah. Senior housing is 1 per dwelling. So I don't know if this board would entertain a waiver potentially, but in favor of landscape.
Want to ask for it? If we could get that, we get some more landscape islands.
The fact that you are adjacent to a church that has, I mean, I can't remember, is this joint with a church, the 103?
No, I think overall is 116, if you include the entire parking?
We have shared parking people, there's more than enough total spots.
Right, I think recognizing or sharing the parking with the church, then,
Well, we'd be more than happy to.
Surprised we didn't originally.
yeah, I
I
think,
can talk to our operators, they operate over a dozen centers of senior housing and see what the ratio is for actual cars.
yeah, it's definitely not one per, so,
We can ask for that.
yeah. I think we would, willing to entertain that,
Get something in the parking lot, yeah.
yeah.
That's
Because
not
it is kind of an
popular.
eyesore situation right now.
That would
Drive by there all
allow
the
us to do a
time.
lot more back there.
Yep. Okay. So look into that as
And that'll
well.
actually give some flexibility with the building also.
Yep. All right, well, I guess welcome. Good luck.
Thank you. We'll see you.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, the next discussion item is Burdette. I think I saw some shirts out there that looked like MH, Madison Heights Glass.
Yes.
Okay, Justin?
Yes. So Madison Heights Glass has been a good partner with the city for a while. They're experiencing some growth, which we love to hear. M1 Industrial District near the railroad tracks along Camborne and East Breckenridge. So we had some initial discussions about expansion, and their growth requires more parking, but they're also adding a nearly 19,000 square foot warehouse facility. The company's sort of acquired a few of the parcels nearby. I included an overhead map of their parcels in your packet, and they're also potentially considering, they're in the application process to secure some of the right-of-way on East Breckenridge that's near the train tracks. Over the years, I saw it myself a few times over there, but a lot of vehicles cut through from Camborne to East Breckenridge thinking that it's just a wide open side street. So once Madison Heights Glass acquired the other property just south of East Breckenridge, it made sense to kind of close things, consolidate some of the truck traffic there as well. So we discussed some initial conversations about parking lot plans, landscaping, lighting, and since I sent the packet, they actually gave me a new draft of their plan that has additional landscape islands on the new parking facility and things like that, which we can bring up here on the screen as well. But they're here essentially to get some good feedback and hopefully move forward with the site plan in the coming month or so.
Okay. Yeah, if you look there. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Scott Richardson. I'm with Advanced Building Group, and
Justin Krebs, Vice President of Madison Heights Glass.
yeah. So I'm going to be their construction manager for building their new proposed pre-engineered building for their expanding their fabrication basically capabilities and whatnot. Brief history: just Madison Heights Glass, been around since 1964. Justin and his family purchased it in 2002. They were in Madison Heights. They moved to Ferndale in 2004, I believe. In the can't really, but probably there's 2020 Burdette is where they originally started, which was about 15,000 square feet in 2004. 2012 purchased 810 Camborne, about 10,000 feet. And then another on the south side of Breckenridge, I don't remember the address, but another 8,000 feet in 2012 as well, just to support the expansion of their business. And as Justin said, looking to do another 19,000 square feet for their fabrication and assembly processes. They are a curtain wall, aluminum storefront fabricator, assembler, and installer. So they don't manufacture a product. They bring in pieces and assemble it there. Essentially, it's ready to go when it goes to the site. So the new building really is an expansion of that process, pretty much all fabrication, so they can have these unitized type assemblies, ship them all across the country. There's a demand for glass, especially on the East Coast, doing a lot of work there. More.
Yeah, we're as far as El Paso, Texas, New Orleans, Louisiana. We're doing the new Detroit Red Wing Stadium, Notre Dame football stadium. We're doing a lot of work with the Army Corps of Engineers out in Fort Meade in Maryland. So we are definitely due to the, I would say, lack of construction. There was lack of construction in the Metro Detroit area. So we essentially are out of space. We have, when we bought the building in 2004, we were, I want to say, probably only maybe 20 to 30 people in our company. Right now, we're almost 120. Our sales volumes have gone 30 times what they were when we purchased, and we didn't think we would ever move out of, or we would run out of space at 2020, which is why we did purchase the surrounding buildings, and it's just, we need to connect them to condense our operations to be more efficient, and that's what we're proposing right now, and hopefully we can do that.
Yeah, this year finally they were able to secure the last couple parcels off of Breckenridge, so that kind of completes the circle, or the square for Justin and his dad's vision. So I mean, the plan all along was to stay in the area, and now we think we can do that just because of where they're going, and this creates a good opportunity for them. So I mean, our plans, I mean, we've engaged AEW, Anderson, Eckstein, Westrick, as our architect and engineer. I'm sure you guys have heard of them. We've had some initial talks and actually sat down with Giffords Webster already, Mr. Ringler, to talk about underground detention type things, because I know we're pretty much displacing all the green space that's there. Unfortunately, we are making some provisions now. As Justin said, we've got a few revised plans. I've got a landscape plan now that will, do the best we can in terms of, what the ordinance requires. But we've added landscape islands in the parking lots in lieu of just striping. Trying to do, some green space in between the existing buildings now. Anything we can do to really, green it up as best we can, and kind of, because right now it's pretty nice. It has a nice, a good portion of green space, but again, we're displacing it because of parking and whatnot. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
First thing I say is that's awesome. I mean, it's great that business is so great and you need to expand, and not only were you able to acquire to have the foresight to start acquiring the properties, it all kind of fell into place. So I think this is a great success story, and exactly the type of stuff we want to see happening in our businesses in Ferndale. So I think from a zoning standpoint and a site plan, I mean, it sounds like everything essentially works. I mean, you're obviously, the use is fine, the setback, I mean, industrial is pretty, it is what it is.
It fits in with the area. I mean, this will actually, obviously, I mean, I don't have any elevations here, but I mean, we are dressing it up a bit. I think Justin has shared a few elevations just now with some more of like clear story glass across the top of it. It's not going to be just your typical pre-engineered building. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I guess it is from the sense of how it's built, but
there's a color scheme. I mean, our what we've done with the other buildings and purchases, they've been light colored brick. They've been in need of some repair, so we've actually put new roofs on there. We've done masonry renovation. The 2020 Burdette is actually we put a whole glass facade in it because that's what we do, and it matches a gray and blue color tone, which is what we do, or which is what we're proposing, I'm assuming, on this new building, along with what we've painted on the other two buildings we acquired as well. So they'll have a uniform look across that standpoint.
Yeah, it's going to show off a lot of what they do, like glass, metal panels, aluminum entrance type stuff, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think your existing building looks very good.
Yeah.
That's out there. I actually noticed it just fairly recently, going, wow, it looks like a very successful, good-looking business. So I'm glad, you're doing well and expanding. My one comment is going to be, just with Camborne being a fairly major, road with crossing and everything, and I meant to bring this up at the last applicant, so please forward this comment to them as well. But the ordinance does require, when you have parking abutting a sidewalk, to have a buffer between the parking lot and the sidewalk. So I can't tell by the drawings you had here, and I'm not sure if it's addressed up there. I can't tell if you are proposing a knee wall or if you have something. I'm sure right now there's nothing there because
right. It's grass up to sidewalk, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
so, moving forward, when we have those cars parking, right up against the sidewalk, we're going to want some type of either knee wall, shrub hedge wall, something to separate the cars from the pedestrian sidewalk. And again, please share that with the last applicant. I meant to mention that. I forgot.
On this drawing here, you can kind of, I don't know if you can really tell, but like right in this area right here, we are proposing like that's a shrub line now.
Okay,
right
so that wasn't on the, so we didn't see that.
You didn't have this, you didn't have that. And then over here, we don't have anything shown yet. This is some new parking, but the sidewalk's wider there. I think there's almost 7 feet of walk there, so we might be able to do something there too if it's required.
Yeah, and any type of, if there is room, anywhere to tighten up stall lengths. I don't know exactly what the dimensions are of your spaces, everything, but if you can get any type of street trees or something in that area to, again, you're not punished for taking away the last of the green. I mean, every building that was there was green before there, but if you can, again, kind of green up the site as you're talking about, primarily, along Camborne, because that is kind of the front door and is a nice, set the standard as other properties, hopefully redevelop in that area.
Yeah, we tried to push that a little more, like I said, on this plan that we kind of preliminary sent over to Justin, but I mean, it's tight, and our spaces are very tight because we wanted to get certain counts, which is why the traffic flow is the way it is.
So just so I understand, so the truck deliveries and everything are going to be pushed kind of towards the railroad around the back of the building?
So it's actually, the design is actually for a pull-through, so that we can come off.
Let's see if I can. Let's say if this is probably good. I mean, this is the paving plan. It was a little dark, but this is concrete. This is a proposed concrete drive, new curb cut right here. Concrete drive, 2-lane drive basically to the new building. 2 overhead doors right here.
Okay.
So it's more or less coming in off Camborne, and we can drive through to Breckenridge.
Okay.
And exit out, or come back out. I mean,
so the
whatever.
Parking area closest to the railroad, that's all this employee parking, essentially?
This is existing employee parking.
So moving forward, the plan is just to keep that, and there's not a connection from there over down to Breckenridge?
Well, there is. I mean, this is what Justin was talking about, like this vacated, this alley that I guess you call it alley, but it's bad.
Right. So moving forward, how is that?
Right here, we're proposing some rolling gates right here. If we're able to get this portion of property, like as Justin had said, we've got a rolling gate right here, and then another rolling gate right over here. Basically, it's right at the corner of another property that we own, right here. So we were kind of hoping to do that to really cut down on that vehicular traffic, other than our own people. But
and then there's
right here. This can be a nightmare right here. People do fly around this corner, and you come out of the building, it's like.
Gotcha.
There isn't actually an existing loading dock at that point too. So the way the grade and the pavement, it actually, you're driving up on half the curb. There's a dumpster over there. I mean, ideally it's a. When we first bought the building, there were 2 posts there with the chain going between the posts, and there were people that were even still, flying through it. So you see the chain in the middle of the parking lot. It's always something we've dealt with, but it would be easier, definitely, because our material is aluminum, and from an outside storage ability, aluminum has scrap value, so we have the ability to bring everything in every night because we don't have a yard per se that's closed off that people can just come in and set it out there, it'll be gone.
So did you say that it has to maintain access for fire?
So the access on Breckenridge, in talking with fire and police, all they need is for the gate to be accessible to them through a Knox box.
They need access.
Right.
We can't close it off, I guess is my question.
Right. Can't close it off completely, if there's a Knox box in which they can get access to that.
So they want to maintain access?
Yep.
Okay, and then just to clarify too, then what's the purpose of the easternmost drive? Is that a drive all the way through as well? To the
Are you
east?
speaking here or
No,
here?
the other side.
Your other east.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
east. Oh,
Yeah.
This here?
So there's a drive that goes all the way through there, correct?
This is more or less walk. This is the exits, the pedestrian exits to the building. There's two. This is mainly just a walk to combine. We've got like a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk on the front of the
So
building.
there's not a drive aisle that connects through
Nope.
there? But there's
Nope.
a curb cut on Camborne, correct?
Camborne, yes. We're modifying the existing curb cut right here to allow for the traffic flow in the parking. Okay. There's one there now, which is the access to the existing parking lot that's there, but we have to modify it slightly. I think we have to make it a little larger.
Again, I'm just trying to clarify access. So there's 3 curb cuts off of Camborne and then none off of Breckenridge.
This is a existing.
Well, other than that,
correct.
it'll be gated off, pull through from
Yes.
the building.
You're right. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry. There's a curb cut here, but this is driveway to the. Yeah, but we're not.
Say that one more time.
There's a curb cut right here where I have that's what Justin was just saying. There's a curb cut right here where I have the pointer.
Uh-huh.
But it's existing. We're not touching that. That's a driveway to this building.
Is that your property?
Yeah.
Okay. But that black in Breckenridge, that's not the black hatched area on Breckenridge. That's not a driveway like going north up through there.
I think I think that's mainly. I could probably see it better on here. I think that's for utility. Yeah, that's where we have to do our sewer tap. So that's just a patch. That's just showing a patch right there.
So there'll be some green space there between the sidewalk and that building edge?
Yeah, I'm hoping we can add some right in here.
Right.
Yeah. That's the plan.
Other questions, thoughts? I mean, as I said, I think it's a pretty straightforward, exactly a success story that we're happy to help facilitate however we can.
Yep. Cool.
Agreed.
Just one question. Steve, I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. And my dad had a business over here, and one of the things that he wished he had was something that wasn't asphalt. So, like, there wasn't even anywhere for anyone to go outside and sit, and he's not a smoker, but for someone to have a cigarette or have lunch outside on a nice day. So I wanted to ask also about grass or employee break areas.
I tell you what, that's his dad's probably biggest thing is that he wants to be able to find a spot.
The picnic table?
Because right now we have that out there, but he wants to find a spot where guys and girls can go out there and have lunch and whatever. And we're trying, and actually, the most right now, like right in here, is something we might be able to accommodate because it wraps around the building with the sidewalk. So that's one spot where we're hoping we might be able to set something up there. That is a big deal in his with his dad too. So.
Right now we have a table sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I've seen people at the table. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, there's a 2-person bar table right here.
Yeah. I thought it was a picnic table, but yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah.
It's like the front row seat to the train tracks.
Are people risking their life if people turn that corner? You said if they're speeding around that corner, this doesn't feel like a very good place
No.
for it.
No. So.
That was my only comment, is that it might be a nice employee amenity, just knowing how limited it can be in that neighborhood. You guys might be like a desirable spot.
Right. Well, so that whole area we're just talking about right here seems like they're good. Yeah.
That's kind of shady in between though, because they sit over here right now.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
cool.
We're excited.
One thing, through the chair, one thing you guys might want to consider with a loss of green space down in the southern area, you've kind of got that northwest corner up there where you've got the chain link fence up along the sidewalk right now. Your parking is far back enough from that fence that if you could throw a hedgerow or some plants, maybe even a tree or something up in that northwest corner, that might be something to consider as well. You could probably do that without really losing parking.
You're talking right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the sidewalk are there, so I mean,
Yeah,
that's probably
you could-
something to consider.
You could kind of square that off, not mimic the railroad, and go 90 degrees and create a sitting area. Like I said, that would really be front row for the.
Be really front row to the
railroad.
railroad.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good luck, and we look forward to seeing you guys back here.
Yeah, we're going to proceed as planned, and hopefully we'll be back next month.
All right.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right, I see which one this is?
Yes.
Which one are we going to?
We'll go back to 928 East 10 Mile.
Okay, 928 East 10 Mile. So back up to discussion item A.
So just a quick recap. Former church property on East 10 Mile. It's been vacant for a few years. Developers here potentially to redevelop into multiple family residential properties. It'd be a new construction project, 28 to 30 units, 1 and 2 bedroom units. The facilities zoned R3, kind of meets the intent of the district and the 2008 master land use plan. We've kind of initially talked about adding some land to the site and providing some access from East 10 Mile from, I believe there's a sidewalk there. But thought it would just be good for him to come in and speak on the intent of the project and any feedback you can give before he officially submits official site plan. So.
All right, welcome if you would to the podium if you don't mind, and introduce yourself and what you want us to know.
Good evening, Chris George. I'm the developer and principal of the team that's going to put this project together. It's a site that we've been looking at for a while. We do have it under contract, and I don't see it up. Justin, did you?
Yeah, if you hit escape.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to use this. I was trying to avoid the podium.
I'm sorry.
I'm terrible with technology.
That's okay. That's what Justin's for.
Help, Justin.
There you go.
Thank you. Great, as Justin said, 2-story, 28 to 30 units, 1 and 2 bedrooms. We'd like to do a nice mix, a little bit heavier on the 2 bedrooms. We believe that we have parking that's sufficient and heavy for the use, along with all the accompanying necessities in terms of garbage, access, and other things that one would consider. We're going to try, and I know it doesn't show it here, we didn't really have time to actually get it on here, but try and heavily landscape the areas that are green and make it try to work with our stormwater detention and improve the green space overall in the front and back of the building, which are green spaces that would be in front and back. We'd like to try and heavily tree 10 Mile to create some buffer between the highway, as you know, which is right off the service drive there, which will kind of limit and really kind of define what the project is. We think that something a little more affordable in terms of the overall market rents makes sense given its proximity to the highway and the service drive. One thing that I did have a brief conversation with Justin about was working with the city engineer and design, which I'm open to, that will provide access to the current community and neighbors, but also allow us a vacated alley, which we'll need to get to parking from those side streets. I don't want to speak for Justin, but I think he said something about removing them. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if it's a good idea. I would kind of defer to greater minds in terms of the traffic flow through of that neighborhood. I don't expect them to disappear, but just some sort of accommodation to access the alley would be fine. What else do I have here? We'd like to take a look at the brownfield for the property. It certainly is functionally obsolescent, and I think that it probably also, at this point, has some real remediation problems given the mold in the property. I don't know if that actually qualifies, but functional obsolescence I know does. Some of the amenities do on-floor laundry. We're going to look at doing a weight room and a workout room, as well as a lift, which is required for any handicap people that would like to move into the building. we're going to have storage in each unit. So the units are actually going to be a little bit larger than I think is typically called for in 2- and 1-bedroom units of this style.
What's your range roughly?
Probably 750 feet, 800 feet per unit. That would be a 2-bedroom unit, a little bit smaller for the 1-bedroom unit. So I think like very units, but also modern and sleek. I think they're going to be something that probably hasn't been built, certainly in that area of the city, yet.
Okay.
If I may, through the chair, what are you projecting your price points to be for the rentals?
So we are optimistic that 2-bedroom units would be between $1,100 and $1,300, and less for 1-bedrooms, probably between $800 and $900.
Thank you.
Those are market rent apartments, I think.
So looking at your plans that you've submitted, I don't know, at least I don't know how far you've gotten into it, because a lot of what you said sounds very great. And what I see on this plan doesn't really reflect what you've just said, because it just looks like pavement from edge to edge, a building from street to street, kind of very uninspired.
And we kind of, through the chair, we kind of talked about a number of those things, and providing something more amenable from the East 10 Mile especially, and then sorry?
Like a door?
Yes, a door, as well as just landscaping out front, and maybe greening up some of the parking lot would help with the tension, and also visually look nice as well. And then getting with the neighbors and finding more history about why those streets were blocked off. I mean, I understand that they were primarily to block traffic from people zipping through, probably from East 10 Mile.
696 was developed.
Yep. So I mean, that would be a larger conversation as well. But there's some traffic
elevation. Excuse me. Was there an elevation in this?
Yes.
Yes.
Too?
Yes. It didn't do you any favors, though.
No.
The elevation looks like a back of a warehouse building, what I would expect, like abutting a railroad track, not for residential.
It looked like a self-storage unit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to. I mean, we're not funky. I mean, we're Ferndale, right? We've seen lots of different styles, but this is just very, like I said, plain, and it looks like a warehouse building, quite frankly.
I would suggest that would be the form and building that we're trying to build. And what I mean by that is not that it looked like a warehouse, but that it looked like something that is very modern and has materials that reflect that.
Maybe this elevation doesn't reflect. Maybe the picture isn't doing it justice. Maybe if we saw some perspectives or colored renderings, maybe that would tell the story.
I don't think, if I may, through the chair, the picture is doing it any justice, and it's in stark contrast to the style in that neighborhood.
I would hope that it would be in stark contrast to the style in the neighborhood. That would be this particular design. And I don't think that the level of resolution on the drawings that you have, it really does justice to at least what we have in mind. I think this was what was put together for this, I hope, informal conversation was just for form, content, and a starting point. I think that further drawings would much more fully resolve what it is we're trying to do, which is something that is, in fact, modern.
Well, I don't think, I don't want to speak, but I think in terms of a use, I think the reuse of a outdated building into a multiple family along a service drive, we get much opposition to that. But again, it's going to be in the details. And I think just a lot of the residential developments that we're seeing tend to have a lot more variety and character. Even just, I don't know if you saw the ones we did tonight for Illinois. You want to pack it here. They're just, and they are, they're very modern and very. You can have this. This was just approved this evening. So we're just used to seeing. Yeah, it's like you're welcome to have that. But so moving forward, if you're looking for a direction from the commission, I think we're going to be expecting a little more design detail and interest on the building.
You need nice renderings.
Nice renderings with
Not
no.
just materials and
renderings.
construction,
But-
too.
And not wall-to-wall concrete. You know, just a solid rectangle box with parking from curb to curb. You know, we're talking about offering nice amenities for the residents. I would imagine that would incorporate some outdoor green space area as well of some sort. How many units were you envisioning here?
28.
Okay.
So that will be our design challenge, I think. You know, given the economics of the land itself and what we're trying to achieve economically, that will be our design challenge, to offer those things that you've mentioned and do it in a way that I think represents what I think you guys in the community are trying to achieve. We have, along with the economic conditions that we have for ourselves, we have security issues, given the particular challenges of the site and where it is, which we're very sensitive to. Given the service drive and the highway, I think that don't really...
the on-ramp?
Yeah, like, I mean, that particular neighborhood and that particular site, I think, has some challenges and some things that I like to think about that wouldn't happen, say, on Livernois or in the downtown district, or, you know, you have a lot of people passing by there, millions a month, I would assume, at some level, that have direct access to the site and can come and go. It's a little bit of a challenge, you know, that we just think about in terms of, you know, the tenant mix and how we want to provide for them. So one thing that I spoke directly about with my architect was the security of the site related to a front door, and how are we going to do that. So I know one thing that I discussed briefly with Justin was, you know, that idea of a long structure on, you know, just one long structure. You know, how do we break it up, make it more visually appealing? How do we satisfy our security issues with the site? And it is a concern, you know. People can come and go, you know. There's not a lot of other neighbors around. You have a park, and you have certainly other commercial developments that are happening or in place at Mohawk. So just something that we're thinking about.
As you're designing the site, obviously, as we mentioned earlier this evening, will be interested in your relationship to the residential neighborhood that surrounds you. You know, you have residential houses, you know, just south of you, and east and west, I believe. But definitely how that south property line is buffered, or how you're going to screen it from the residents behind you. What type of separation are you proposing? That'll be something we'll be interested in, and expect that you'll talk to those neighbors in advance as well to see what they're...
Well, we've had some impromptu conversations with a few people, and I believe one was a neighbor, and I think that they're reasonably excited to get something new and in place of what's there. In terms of screening, I think landscaping. Structure that we're planning is 25 feet, so I think it's in line with what's there, if not smaller. So I think that's probably a good thing, not casting a shadow. We're on the north side of the neighborhood. That's always advantageous because in the northern hemisphere, the sun is always in your south, so you're not going to cast a shadow in the summertime. But it's certainly something that we'll consider.
But I mean, all in all, like I said, the security issues that you have with your site, I mean, also the site is very well positioned. You know, it's a couple blocks from a park, a couple blocks from the future developments potentially happening over at Bermuda Mohawk, in downtown Royal Oak, downtown Ferndale. I mean, I think, you know, don't shortchange yourself of the location. The challenges are also, there's also a lot of for that location with easy access, obviously, off of 696, and I think...
We think the demographic is somewhere between 3 and 38. We don't think that we're going to get
That's Ferndale, I mean.
But I think that it's probably a first apartment for somebody. I mean, that's kind of who we visualize. We'll come in if we price it right, and we're able to price it right, given the economics. But our demographic is definitely younger, so I think they'll be able to utilize that location for both Royal Oak and Ferndale. So,
Other thoughts, comments? I mean, so from a zoning standpoint, we're all good, right?
Right.
In terms of setbacks?
Right.
But one question I did have is, what would be the side yard setbacks off of Horton and Inman? Looking at the drawing, it looks like it's showing it almost, again, I'm not sure where the property lines lie on this drawing.
There's, for R3, 5 feet.
Gotcha, okay.
I mean, we're planning on using the space around the building as green space, so I don't know that we've had specific conversation about whether it's 5 or 10 or 15 from the building, because we can increase and decrease the total size of the units, play with. Kind of unlike a garden court, we're going to have, in a lot of garden courts, you're not able to do hallways down the middle and do 2 units across from each other, because you have to have egress from bedrooms. So our bedrooms are actually going to be next to each other in the units, so we can get that egress. So at some level, it allows us to play with the actual size of the unit. So setbacks is something that we can play with.
Through the chair, I would just think about doing something to break up the visual monotony of the north facade, and really think about your landscaping on the north. If you want this to be a market rate building, which you do, and you want to appeal to people that are going to be a younger demographic that's going to come in and view these as funky apartments to live in, you've also got to be visually appealing at the same time. Think about having some amenity, bicycle parking, maybe some bike racks or something in your parking lot. You're going to be, like Chair Rodinger said, you're going to be halfway in between Royal Oak and Ferndale. It's an easy biking distance to downtown, to either city from where you're located here. So, take advantage of that. But really, think about what you're doing with the north facade there, with the appearance. You can use, the type of materials that you're using, the galvanized metal, things like that. Those are going to be cool-looking materials for a building, but with just the 2 horizontal bands with nothing breaking it up right now, it's uninspiring, and I understand you guys haven't put a ton of thought into it yet, but maybe do that before you come back in.
Well, 2 things in reaction to that is I personally ride a moped, so it's something that I utilize in my own life. It's not quite a bicycle, but it's something that I want to provide for, because I think that as the concentric circle of Detroit pulls back, people want options, want to just.
Sure.
I personally hate driving, and it's one of the reasons why I live around here. It's because I have access to different communities on my chosen method of transportation. The other thing that I would mention is that our intention, and nothing is shown here, so forgive me, is to heavily landscape the front of the building.
That'll make a big difference. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So I think I have enough direction that we can continue to converse back and forth on site improvements and come back eventually with a full site plan.
Great.
All right, good luck.
Yeah, thank you. This was very helpful, and I have a nice list here of, I think, concerns that I heard, and we can do a further level of resolution and bring something back that I think you'll be happy with.
Great. So look forward to seeing you back.
Thank you.
Thanks. So we do have another item, so there's no applicant here for it.
I guess not. They were well aware. I can give you some details about the project.
Well, I guess my question was, is there, it seems like a pretty straightforward reoccupancy of an industrial building. What was their direction that they were looking on?
It's a big project for them. They very much just felt that they wanted to come see you before they spent a lot of money on, architecture, site plans, and things like that. And they wanted to just get some additional feedback. It's been a building that's vacant for a long time, and they just wanted general feedback. I told them the basics of, parking lot repair, removing barbed wire, landscaping, things like that. But they, they're potentially moving from Royal Oak. They're excited about the project and just wanted to get any feedback you had. But they're not here, so.
Well, I think people had comments.
Okay.
I had a couple of questions. Is the existing chain link fence there necessary?
No, that would go.
Okay, well, I know the barbed wire, but the chain link.
The chain link along Jarvis
Right.
would be removed. There is also a barrier or chain link between the industrial properties on the other sides.
On Wanda?
Not on Wanda, but
Oh, okay.
To the west.
to the west and south, yes.
And then it was kind of interesting because I looked at the Royal Oak property,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a similar layout actually. So, and the Royal Oak property, it looks nice from
Mhm.
the outside. So that was promising.
Good, yeah.
And then I was also curious about the garage doors on Wanda, if those were going to remain. There's 2 curb cuts currently, if they needed both of those for deliveries, or?
In initial comments, it didn't sound like they needed those. All of the deliveries would be coming from Jarvis. There's larger garage doors there.
Right.
So that's a good suggestion I can mention to them.
Yeah, that was one of my comments, is what was going to be their treatment of the facade along Wanda. Not only just the garage doors, but the facade, and then obviously there's some utility poles, but it seems like there's a sidewalk just north of this to be Nectar, and there's some sidewalks not immediately behind the site, but south of this, and if there's a way to just look at this treatment between the building and Wanda. Obviously, there's not a ton of room there, but if they could even just maybe make it a sidewalk with some poles, and I don't know, but just to make it more walkable on that part.
Some kind of softening with the proximity to the park and everything too.
Yeah, because again, like I said, there's a connection to the north for sidewalk. So it just seems like they could really fancy up that Wanda side and help them with maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely the doors. And then the same comment I had about parking lots facing the streets on Jarvis. So
Screening.
Some screening there.
That is screening that's not chain link, yeah.
Yes. But other than that, I mean, again, it's tell them I think we're all excited about someone coming in and occupying our vacant buildings and do a successful business.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea with a lot of the discussion items was just that, kind of like what you saw earlier with the former American Legion Hall, just having the discussion items early is, I think, limited coming back for multiple revisions of the site plans, and so I think they've been beneficial, and people have complimented the commission throughout the process, and so, I'm not going to bring every single plan in here for a discussion, but ones that seemed like appropriate is what I've been trying to do.
Through the chair, I've got a question, and it's not necessarily site-specific, but it is use relevant to both this Jarvis Street, potentially, but actually much more to the Burdette neighborhood, the Madison Heights Glass. And I'm thinking about the conversation about loft zoning. How we've just had 2 great stories today about businesses expanding and reoccupying or purchasing or growing into buildings in one neighborhood that we were considering for that sort of zoning, which would, I would assume, if you're using it as residential as opposed to industrial, or actually erode our tax base. And I'm wondering, and perhaps you don't know yet, 'cause you don't know,
right.
but there was a strong desire years ago by the now 2 former economic development director. Marcia felt very strongly about maintaining industrial zones for tax-based purposes and for tax-based diversification purposes. And we certainly saw a down, and now we're seeing what feels like a natural sort of coming back up of those businesses. I was kind of interested in talking about loft zones, and now I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to talk about that at all, because we're seeing exactly the uses that should be in those spaces. I'm just kind of wondering about the thoughts. It's particularly relevant to that Madison Heights Glass neighborhood.
I think probably one of the best parts about the master land use plan process was I keep coming back to it, was the meeting that we had in the old Eratico building with some of the business owners there and stakeholders and property owners, new and old. And so the loft committee was kind of floated to, there were, certain business owners that have been there forever that thought, I would never want to live in the building where I do my business. But some of the other business owners, like a photography studio owner, it's not quite the heavier industrial. He could easily see himself living upstairs. So generally, I think it was a favorable to that group. But I think that's what's interesting about it, is that it would be a case-by-case basis. That's why we'd have to it'd be, sort of like a special land use, or probably a special land use, and have the committee. So it wouldn't work in every instance. I can think of a few buildings there that it would make sense. And there's people in there that are producers that, they could easily live above, or have a few other people live above, or at night it's not quite as intense of production.
And you're describing residential as the secondary use in that.
Exactly. So, yeah, and only upper level as well. But, yeah, I think the committee makes sense because it wouldn't work for everything, but there are certain areas where it could. I don't ever see it going down to the M2 zone, the Wandas, but, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I just think of it as like, I keep on thinking back to, not that we're Birmingham, but it reminds me of the Birmingham Triangle District. I mean, Triangle District. I mean, the railroad track is right there. It was historically, manufacturing, and they have townhomes and different things, and the breweries. That's where Griffin Claw is, and it's like we talk about our brewery that's coming. What is the Urban Rest or whatever? Mm-hmm. Breweries moving. The fire site redevelops. As things shift and evolve, I think it's kind of that eclectic, artsy.
Yeah.
I just wonder if we're doing ourselves a disservice.
And I think that was part of what Bob Gibbs was talking about, is you have to balance. If you just make it upper-level residential lofts, whatever you want to call it, a permitted use, then that's when those producers start to, the rents go up and they have to move on. But if we treat it on a case-by-case basis, then we can kind of control and see how it goes. And it may not be something we do. It's not going to be something we approve on every time, but.
And I worry about sustainability. We're within 8 years, the next downturn, less if Trump gets elected. So I think that I get really nervous when I start messing with this.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, we're kind of already going into a master land use discussion. But
good questions.
I guess any other discussion? Otherwise, all right. So no old business. Call the audience. Negative. Administrative items. So we have 2 new faces here.
Yes. Very excited to introduce both of them. But some of you met Jordan Twardy from previous events, and earlier tonight. But yeah, Jordan just came on board last week as our new Community and Economic Development Director. We're excited to have him. I think you've had a good, diverse mix in the past week and a half of various projects. So, I don't know if you want to tell everybody your background and what the first week and a half has been like. And he's still here after a week and a half, so that's good.
I guess I'm pretty loud. Yeah, I actually came from the Boulevard Association. I was their executive director from 2014 to today. I started there in 2012. Before that, I was at the City of Warren. I worked for the Mayor's Office, and I also worked for the Tax and Finance Authority, and did some projects for the Planning Department. Really excited to be here. The first week and a half has been kind of a whirlwind, but I do feel like I've got a pretty good sense of what's going on. It's a very exciting time for the city. I'm very excited about the MLUP. I think that's a really, really ambitious plan. One of my last projects at 8 Mile was a corridor master plan. And I got it through the first draft before I left, but the goal was basically what you guys have created for the city, which is this action step framework, so that you kind of have each department focused on what's going to happen to carry that plan forward. And it's a really, really exciting plan. So I'm excited to be part of it, and I'd take any questions that you have, but also you probably know where to find me if you go to Derek's office. Feel free to come at me anytime.
All right. Well, welcome.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, let's go on the line.
Well, we met last night. I'm Nina Kelly.
We met, Dan.
No,
It's been a council.
Sorry.
Jordan, I'm Ian Williamson. It's nice to meet you. I've been on Planning Commission for maybe a couple years now.
And Ian is also on the Board of Zoning Appeals, which didn't meet this month, but maybe next month. So.
And Sarah Roediger. almost a senior member on this commission now, but about 14 years, yeah. Since I built my house here, I turned in the application the next day, so been here ever since.
Kate Baker. So you had the pleasure of seeing me 9 two nights in a row. And I joined the Planning Commission in 2007 or 8 when I was on the council, and I really enjoy the Planning Commission more because you get yelled at less.
Deb Brazen, 10 years? 9?
At least.
I don't even know how long I've been here.
Long enough that you know that guy who just had the
That was the Wedge House guy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my memory of it. Yeah.
House guy?
I'll show you.
The unique house, right, on the way up Bermuda.
Like
Yeah, I know that house.
Caused lots of problems when it was constructed.
Wait, the last guy's the one that owns that house?
Yes.
Because I remember
It all coming full circle.
there was
Hey, remember the recording's still on.
similar discussion about materials for the house
And start
how
contract?
they related to the storage facility across the street that we just had about the new housing
Does he
development.
currently live there?
Yeah. All right, we can talk about this after.
Yeah,
No, that,
yeah.
I just,
Just placing it.
Okay.
Yep.
So anyway, welcome, Jordan, and it'll be fun. After this master plan's done, we got lots of stuff we got to do, which I'm sure you know if you've
Yes.
read that implementation chapter.
He saw the entire implementation list and didn't run away, so I thought that was a good
So you
sign.
saw a plan?
Soon. 2 days.
Yeah, we'll get there. Okay.
And then also, Yu Chen Ding is our planning intern
No.
for the next few months or so. He's been a great addition, also helping a lot with GIS and design. He did a really cool, helped us with a presentation about Ferndale moves to Planning Commission. One of the better looking presentations that I think Council's seen, if I might add. And but he's been coming from he's coming from U of M. So having a little variety. We've had a lot of Wayne Staters.
I was
and-
going to say,
yes.
first non-Wayne State. one.
Yes. So Yu Chen, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, currently I'm a master's student in urban planning at the University of Michigan, and my concentration is physical planning and design. Previously, I graduated from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign with a planning degree, as well as a minor degree in landscape studies. So yeah, it's my great honor to work with City of Ferndale, and I've been assisting Justin in Ferndale Moves projects by making slides and mapping, and yeah, I'm very excited about the planning work Justin has designed.
So.
And also, I'm very excited to co-work with everyone here. So yeah, I look forward to it.
Do you live out here, or do you live in the Ann Arbor area?
Currently, I live in Ann Arbor.
Wow. Okay. Well, have fun with that commute.
Yeah. Yeah, drive through.
Everything like
Yeah.
But we appreciate it.
Yes.
He's been a great help. He's been stepping up our map game quite a bit as well. So hopefully there will be more to share on that soon. So
Good. Well, welcome. Hopefully we can have you for 2+ months.
yeah.
Plus. Plus.
So we're excited to have a full team essentially. So it's great.
All right. Let's talk about our MLUP.
MLUP update. So this is kind of the general draft timing. Friday, April, and Jordan and I will get the first draft, and we'll review it over the weekend and get a good sense for it, and then.
Over Dream Cruise weekend, you guys are gonna.
I mean, I'm not a big car guy, but
Okay.
anyway, but so and then we'd like to share the Planning Commission. Sarah kind of initially mentioned that it might be good to have a physical meeting, potentially between. I think initially I had on here September 1st written feedback due. I'm not sure if you'd rather do a meeting with Hamilton Anderson then and talk about all the feedback then. I think busy. Fall is busy. It appears for everybody as well. So, I'm open to suggestions on if we want to fit in a meeting here and there. I know that you haven't seen the full plan. We've talked about that quite a bit. But trying to get all of that in and adopt things. I would hope by the end of October. And that's kind of why at least I've listed the initial meetings as is, but we think it's a great plan, and we want to do it right and get everyone's feedback, and we spent a lot of time and got a lot of feedback from the public and then all these groups as well, so we want to do it right. So end of October would be my goal, but we want it to act, as long as it happens in 2016. That's my goal. Then we can still call it 2016.
I don't know anyone else's availability is. I know when Justin sent out the notice about September 14th potential meeting. I know
I'll be out of the state.
Yeah, I'm out all week for a conference that week.
So we
fall gets into conference season, so that kind of starts.
The American Association of State and Local History Conference at the Detroit Historical
Okay.
Society is hosting.
Okay. So I don't know if the week of September 4th.
It's Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day.
Okay.
But so I guess my thought is, again, I don't want to beat a drum here, but we've put a lot of effort into this, and here it is. We still haven't even seen it. We're talking about potential adoption meetings, and we haven't even seen a plan at all. So I guess I would be more excited about getting the plan, and having a discussion about it instead of just having individual feedback due within a week of getting it. So I'm not sure if there's a way. My preference, I guess, would be to get the plan as soon as we can, whenever you guys feel comfortable with it, and maybe at the September 21st meeting, because I think getting one before then is going to be hard, with having a discussion at the September 21st meeting, because that's our next meeting, and then setting it up.
Start earlier, right? I mean, if we've got the plan to have a discussion, maybe we could start earlier.
Oh, you mean the
like
6
o'clock. 6 o'clock would be fine.
So work session before the regular meeting.
It's wisest.
Right.
Okay.
And then
rather than doing 2 separate nights.
Right. Because it's September, October. Like I said, the conferences kick in, and then the goal of maybe meeting in September, talking about it, maybe pre-meeting, having a regularly scheduled meeting, and if there's more, we can continue the discussion post-meeting if we needed to, with the idea of maybe adopting at our October meeting.
Okay.
Which would then get to council in November.
Okay.
I just don't want to rush it.
No, that's fine.
I don't like the idea of us all getting our own and everyone just thinking at themselves at their computer without a discussion.
Yeah. That's why I didn't know if, a separate meeting would work. It sounds like it's kind of tough to get together, which it's fine. But I think, electronically, or call me, talking about it, once you do see it before the 21st, those are things that, if there's, big red flags, I can work on them in between, and then we can talk about them at the discussion as well.
Right. Remember what else is going on. The city's ready to kick off its mission, vision, values
Right.
as soon as the vendors pick, so y'all will probably be tapped for interviews for that process.
Right.
I guess I just don't want to.
And this ties in, and I think the MOUP is going to really tie in with the CIP process, and so we kind of talked about that yesterday, and not accelerating, but shortening the time in which staff will submit projects. That way, it can come to you guys soon thereafter as well.
We're about due for our annual RAT discussion. I mean, there's a lot going on.
We could talk about what my
There's a
neighborhood's
few
doing.
things.
They're going crazy. Wilson neighborhood, they're nuts.
Oh, we usually knock down the building.
Yes.
I like the idea of having it for a couple weeks and
Yeah.
letting it marinate before we meet, and I think meeting on the same day.
Right, that's what I was thinking too, like a 1 week turnaround time.
Okay.
Even for you guys, I think is.
I mean, it's going to be a challenge for sure. I guess I'm hopeful there's not going to be a lot of red flags just based on the information list, but you're right. I mean, we do need to still see the full plan before we can.
Right, so my thought would be that we get the plan as soon as possible. We get, give or take 3 weeks, a month to look at it. That when they're saying that at the September 21st meeting, everyone has read the plan. I don't want anyone to be like, oh, look at this. We've all thoroughly digested it. If we have big red flags or questions, we feel forward, but I think we should target the 21st as our big meeting.
All right.
And recognize we're going to have other agenda items, so hopefully the discussion, like I said, help those go quicker, so that the next time they come, they'll be.
Yeah, I'm anticipating, and this kind of leads into item D, which is not on here, is I kind of anticipate a lot of site plans coming through for review in the next 3 to 4 months. Right now, December's meeting is planned for the 21st, which I don't think anybody probably really wants. Pushing that back a week.
You mean up a week?
Or up a week, yes. To the 14th. I wanted to see if that would be amenable to the group. December.
We meet on Wednesdays, right?
I'm here.
And I'll send an email to the entire group because Commissioner Farr and Nazar are not here. But
And we're down one right now, right?
right, so there's an application for someone with architecture background. I think would be a good addition. The mayor's just reviewing his application, so.
So theoretically, there'll be someone on. Their first meeting could be the big.
Yeah, I think that was coming Monday because we all internally approved the application, I thought.
December 14th.
The mayor hadn't yet, so, but.
I do believe it's
not to throw him under the bus,
appointees, or-
but.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So theoretically, we'd have a new member, and either at the September or October meeting, the city attorney promises me that we will have the quorum item figured out as well. So luckily we had the 6 we needed this evening, but quorum, changing that and adding alternates, I think is a good next step.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Whitney's on Ghost Hunters tonight.
Who is?
The Whitney.
The Whitney's on
Really?
Ghost Hunters
Ghost
tonight. I
Hunters
heard
tonight.
about that. We're going to be on Mob Steel.
Are you really?
Yes.
I went to
Cool.
Mob Steel.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You come,
Yes.
I'll
Tape
tell you
recorder
that.
up?
Yeah. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn.
Is the tape recorder off?
So they're restoring one of our one-of-a-kind vehicles.
Nice.
There's an unveiling. I think it's on the